So we talked about these four costs of quality, okay, individually, and explain what is the definition of each one of them, okay? So now let's take a look at the relationship between them, okay? So there's some kind of quite interesting things happening there. So let's think about that kind of process view that we talked about in a previous chapter, right? So we have inputs, we have process transformation that are happening, so companies do things and stuff, transform materials or information into other materials or different information. We have outputs, and we have finally the customer that receive the product, right? In this kind of very simple diagram where we're making bread, right, and selling to the customer. So if we think about each cost of quality, each one is kind of more related to steps of the process or elements in the process, right? So if we're talking about prevention, most of it is done before transformation, right? That's why it's called prevention, right? You're preventing bad raw materials getting here into your process. You're preventing error mistakes to happen in your process steps. So you're kind of in this aspect before or with when the beginning of the process. If you think about appraisal, you're measuring your process. You're making sure what you're doing, how you're doing, making sure that you know the quality of the product as you're doing it or right after you do it, right? If you think about internal costs, are costs that are already there, right? You already did something wrong and you have a bad quality product, right? And when we're talking about customers, they're responsible for the external part, right? So to get to an external cost of quality, you'd have to touch the customer in some way and have to come back from the customer, right? So take a simple example, right? We talked on our break even calculation. Uh, Sorry about that. I'm not going to cut, so you get at least something exciting in the middle of the video. So we talked about our taco food truck business, right? So imagine that you bought the cheese, right, to your taco, and the cheese was not good, right? It was rotten, right? So you can prevent this from happening by just checking out every ingredient that you buy, doing like a visual inspection, and you have to spend time there doing that, so it's a cost, and you can classify as a prevention cost. So you haven't done that, right? So you put it into a taco now, and you again at the end of the line after you produce your taco, you now have a quality check, right, to see if the product is good or not, and then you realize the product is not good, right? So now you have a appraisal, a measure cost of those few seconds that you're spending checking every product. And after you realize that is not good, now we need to do something about it, right? So we need to take the cheese out. Maybe you can do that. Put another one. So you're going to be reworking that, or you need to scrap. Just throw it away and do another one, right? And you'll have a cost associated with the time and the material to do that. Or let's say that all happened and you didn't notice, and you give it to the customer. Now the customer will taste it or will look at it and will say, "Oh, that's disgusting," and throw the taco in your face or something like that. So you're losing not only the product, but you're also losing the customer, the market, or maybe they will eat it and have a really bad night and put a lawsuit on you or go to uh, food truck. What website would you go? TripAdvisor? I don't know. Or yeah, or just Google Maps and put a really nasty review, and now other people are looking. So that will generate cost of the loss of revenue and all that. So these are different kinds of costs with something that can be caught in different ways, right? So what about which one costs more, right? Or which one costs less? Or what is the relationship between those four in terms of value? So if you think about it, right? Prevention. Oops. Prevention. It's a lower cost. Appraisal. It's somehow lower cost, right? We're just looking at the material. But if you don't look at the raw material, if you don't look at the product, after you make the taco, you have to throw away everything, right? So it takes 3 minutes to make the taco, and you put all the ingredients, and then you have to throw everything away. It costs a lot more than if you just went back to your supplier and say, oh, this cheese is bad, just give me another one, right? That will not cost much. But if you go through internal, have to do everything again, or if you even go to external, it will cost a lot more, right? These lawsuits and complaints in the market. So what happened is, and you go through the process step and go closer to the customer, the cost of quality will increase every time, right? So internal and external are the most expensive ones. Then appraisal and prevention are the least expensive ones, right? Hope that makes sense. So this chart is just continuing that idea, okay? And I have two groups of costs right now. Let's think about prevention and appraisal being one group, internal and external being the other group, okay? So let's think about how much you spend in product and what is the quality level. So how much do you spend in prevention and appraisal, so the first two, and how much quality rejection and bad product you have, right? So let's say that you don't spend much in trying to prevent problems from happening, right? You don't put someone to look at the cheese, you don't look at every taco after you make it. What's going to happen to your rejection? What's going to happen with the quality of the product, right? So it will be very high, right? If you invest more in appraisal and prevention, okay, you expect that the level of quality of your product be a lot better, right? So if I increase the amount of money that I spend in prevention and appraisal, I will generate a lot less problems, right? I will have a lot more tacos that are good. And the other way around, if I don't invest in preventing, I will generate a bunch of tacos that are really bad, and I have to throw away a bunch of stuff, right? But if I invest a lot in preventing mistakes from happening, that cost of internal and external, so scrap and rework and customer complaints, are going to be down. Okay? So that's the relationship between them. Because I invest in prevention and appraisal, reduce my internal and external, and because my internal and external is always more expensive than prevention and appraisal, it makes sense to prevent things from happening. It makes sense to measure and evaluate things, because by doing that, I am reducing the total quality cost. And that's what this figure is showing, right? That upper line here is just the red plus the green, okay? So what I want is to increase my prevention and appraisal so I create less defect product, okay? Does that make sense? Hope so.